大家好，歡迎嚟到舊金山中華文化中心舉辦嘅頒獎典禮。我哋係為一班有創意同埋有藝術才華嘅藝術家頒獎。呢一群創作者大膽而富有創造力，佢哋不斷突破自己領域嘅界限，使我哋社區更加活躍、包容同安全。喺我哋了解佢哋之前，我哋先了解中華文化中心，亦被稱為 CCC。喺 Start Small 同 Andy Warhol 視覺藝術基金會、國家藝術基金會、市政府嘅支持下， CCC 係當代藝術同社區嘅工作得到咗廣泛認可。佢哋通過當代藝術為未得到充分服務嘅人提供平等發言權。跟住落嚟，我哋一齊睇睇 CCC 嘅介紹。
The mission of the Chinese Culture Center of San Francisco is to elevate the underserved and be a voice for equality. We provide a safe space for artists who champion activism, resiliency, and healthy communities. In doing so, we shift the dominant narrative, empower change, and reimagine our futures.
Art is a universal language, as we know, and that we all find ways to relate to one another through the magic of art. I think that that's important, that we elevate organizations like Chinese Culture Center to be able to provide access to voices that otherwise would be lost or marginalized.
这次举办的我们的展览，然后是非常难得可以从性别以及女性议题出发，那透过艺术的感知与想象，将性别平权的精神，延伸至更多的面向与连结与讨论。
thing that I think CCC really interesting and unique in is the fact that it's hyper local and hyper international. And I get a voice to be an amplifier for the voices of people in my neighborhood.
Hello, my name's Christine Wong, Wong, and I'm so happy to have been an artist doing this art, culture, and belonging project with Chinese Culture Center. The questions that we asked was, what are your hopes and dreams for Chinatown? Now actually on a billboard this month in Atlanta, and we're here to take up space and not be invisible and afraid.
And that there are so many things about that culture and that art that keeps you strong and keeps you unified over the very rough times that you may have as a community.
What we did on April 10th with Artists Against Asian Violence was a way of showing the potential.
Michael and I built this Two Language One Community project to connect Chinese American and African American communities together and find the Chinese Culture Center as one of the best organizations to work with. Responded so fast to the rising crisis and the issues.
A show of support and unity today. City leaders joining with the Chinatown community to say enough to hate and violence.
The action on March 20th from the Bay to Atlanta. I think the main message of the rally was to invite our community members to take up space.
It was really so moving for me to see Portsmouth Square activated as a safe space for Asian Americans to come together, to grieve, to create so much anti-Asian violence.
I think moments like this makes me feel that art shouldn't be an afterthought. It is our voice and our chance to build our own narrative.
Future is people.
The future is what we make it.
Building strong communities together.
Really challenging, but the future also is very bright.
Future is unpredictable.
The future is us.
It is my honor to join the Chinese Cultural Center on celebrating your 56th-year anniversary. For more than 5 decades, the Chinese Cultural Center has been building community and creating leaders through the arts, like the exhibits, festivals, public art, and walking tours. During this global pandemic, their continuous commitment to diversity, inclusion, and solidarity are more important than ever as we work towards a more equitable and just society. I want to thank CCC's Executive Director, Jenny Liang, for your leadership, and congratulations again to the Chinese Cultural Center on 56 extraordinary years.
The Chinese Culture Center, or CCC's, work is about building strong communities and empowering voices. During this pandemic and amidst heightened violence against the AAPI communities, we need each other now more than ever. This year's theme, All Moon, We, the Future, looks forward to reimagine a more just and inclusive future. At CCC, we believe that arts and artists are integral to that work. In telling our stories, inspiring us, and being a bold, creative, and reflective voice. We recognize these amazing trailblazers for their commitment to community and providing platforms for change, and doing so with artistry and dedication.
We're very proud to present the Trailblazer Award to Janet Yang. She's a Golden Globe and also Emmy Award-winning Hollywood producer with deep roots in China. Her award-winning films and TV credits include The Joy Luck Club, The People vs. Larry Flynn, and Dark Matter. Her most recent project, Over the Moon, is an animated feature based on her original story inspired by the Chinese moon goddess. She has been named one of the 50 most powerful women in Hollywood by The Hollywood Reporter. She's also an advocate for cultural exchange and Asian American media. Let's welcome Janet Yang.
So around what age you start to be interested in filmmaking?
Well, the filmmaking part came much later. The film watching part was pretty early on. My sister is 6 years older than me. I attribute my mature taste in film to her because I had no choice but to watch what she was watching. We sat at home and I have an older brother and an older sister, and somehow my sister seemed to control what was then the equivalent of the remote control of the dial on the TV. And I ended up watching very mature films for my age. But it wasn't until I went to live in China after college that I thought of it as a potential. It wasn't even a career, it was a hobby, it was an interest. I visited China first in 1972. At the time I didn't speak Chinese really. I went there with my mother to visit relatives because my mother worked at the United Nations. But it made me want to know China better. It made me want to speak Chinese. It made me want to understand their lives and their history. So in college, I decided to take Chinese studies. It was opened up a crack, not much, not like today. And I just wanted to experience China, and I particularly wanted to live in Beijing because I wanted to learn proper Mandarin. I had been studying in college for several years. I was a visiting student at Harvard. I told all my teachers, I said, I want to go live in China, find me a job or something to do there. And she was from China, and she indeed found me a job working at the Foreign Languages Press, which is the government organization that publishes books and magazines for export.
Right. Now, congratulations again for receiving from Cultural Center, the Trailblazer Award. Now, on that day, there'll be a lot of your friends and colleagues going to be at the virtual gala. What are you going to say to them? Or is there any particular person that you want to thank?
I'm so grateful these days to our community. Well, the pandemic has been really, really rough, and there has been a rise in anti-Asian hate crimes. So I'm gratified by that. I see lots of people like Daniel Dae Kim step up and offer a bounty for the person who pushed and then killed a man on the streets. Very shocking, but again, at the same time, it's unprecedented how strongly the community has come together. So the more representation we have, the more people are inspired and emboldened and feel empowered to speak up, to be very visible in media and in entertainment, and that really, really helps. So a lot of things are happening that are quite wonderful, despite the very unhappy incidents that we've been experiencing.
Well, again, thank you so much, and congratulations again, Janet. And Janet Yang, Hollywood producer, I appreciate your time, and have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Janet. Trailblazers, as you know better than anyone, don't just split the ocean. They build bridges. Congratulations again on yet another well-deserved honor.
Congratulations for this immense honor of the Trailblazing Award. If there is anyone who truly deserves it and has earned it, it is you. Thank you for everything that you do, and to your continued success, and for all the adventures we are going to have together. Congratulations.
Grab your smartphone to scan the QR code to bid and support the Chinese Cultural Center's Harmony and Bliss, We the Future, by bidding on these wonderful auction items.
Brandon is the chef and the owner of Michelin star Mr. Ju's restaurant and Mama Huhu. He's a native San Franciscan, and he's trained in the kitchen of California cuisine pioneers and Italian institutions. He's also the author of Mr. Ju's in Chinatown, a collection of essays and recipes about Chinese American food. Now tell me a little bit about your childhood.
Sure.
What inspired you to be who you are today?
Well, you know, my childhood is kind of the way that I remember kind of the food that my parents were nostalgic for, and my grandparents, you know, what they made. Understanding that food is a way of storytelling and a way of just finding, for me, like my identity.
Now you reinvent and pushes the boundaries of Chinese American food, right? And how does that idea comes to your mind?
I think, you know, initially understanding some of the cuisine that came from this neighborhood, it was like even chop suey and egg foo young, dishes that maybe my family wouldn't order necessarily, but learning more about them, the dishes themselves, how they were developed, really the ingenuity of Chinese chefs and restaurateurs to use Chinese techniques with American products, with in mind that the American palate and the taste of maybe what they imagined would draw more people to this neighborhood. They used those recipes as a way to break racism that was really tearing this community apart from you know, establishing itself.
Now, why is it important to have Mr. Ju's right in Chinatown?
I think this neighborhood has always, to me, been an inspiration for all of Chinatowns, all over the nation, all over the world. This is where Chinese American food and the mentality that you can use Chinese techniques with American products.
Now, is there anyone that you want to thank during the gala at the Chinese Cultural Center in the evening that you received this award?
I would like to thank Betty Louie, who is my landlord here, but she was the person that gave me this opportunity and has just been an amazing not only landlord, but like friend and I would say supporter through this entire endeavor for the restaurant. I also would like to thank Martin Yan, He's someone that has inspired me since I was a kid. And I think his love for Chinese food and for Chinatown, has carried to me as well. And then my family. My parents and my siblings. A lot of what we experienced as kids were things that are very cherished memories to me. So, and also like things that I want to pass on to my family one day, or my kids.
Hi, Brandon. Congratulations on your new cookbook. I'm so excited. I'm so very proud of you. You've brought so much to our community. We all love you. Thank you so much for being here. Congratulations again.
Hey, Chef Brandon. Congratulations. Great book. I have it. I'm going to bring it over so you can sign it.
We proudly present the Lifetime Achievement in Community Building Awards to Gene Luen Yang. His 2006 book, The American-Born Chinese, was the first graphic novel to be nominated for a National Book Award, and the first to win the American Library Association's Michael L. Prince Award. He also received the MacArthur Genius Grant in 2016. His other titles include Boxer and Saints, a graphic novel about the Boxer Rebellion, and a continuation of Nickelodeon's Avatar, The Last Airbender, and DC Comics' Superman. In addition to cartooning, Gene teaches creative writing through Hamline University Master of Fine Arts in Writing for Children and Young Adults. Let's welcome Gene Luen Yang.
So we're very interested in knowing, how was your childhood? What influences you to be a graphic artist?
Well, I am the son of two immigrants. My mom was born in mainland China, my dad in Taiwan. When I was a kid, I grew up in a house full of stories. My mom and my dad were both avid storytellers. Most of their stories were from Chinese culture. They told me about Sun Wukong, all of these traditional Chinese stories. And I think it was their way of linking me with their past, making sure that I was connected with the places that they left. So I grew up with this real deep respect for stories. I also grew up drawing, and comics really are, graphic novels are really a way of connecting stories and drawing together.
So she really encourages you, huh? Now, when you start being a graphic designer, what inspired you to do your first book?
Well, when I was really young, I wanted to be an animator. I wanted to work for Walt Disney. When I was a kid in the 80s, when I was watching those animated movies and animated television shows, I had no real idea, no real understanding of how that happened, how to get my drawings to move like that. So pretty soon after that, I teamed up with a friend of mine. My best friend in 5th grade was named Jeremy Kunyoshi, and we started drawing comic books together. So we would draw an issue of a comic. We'd get them Xeroxed by his mom, then we'd staple them by hand, and we would sell them to our friends for 50 cents a piece. That was the beginning of my cartooning career.
Yeah. Now, why is it your stories are so important, especially to young people?
Well, I think, I write a lot about finding identity. I think that was very hard for me when I was a kid. I remember feeling really lost. I grew up in between cultures. I grew up in Chinese culture at home and in American culture at school. One really stark example of this was, I remember, at home when I was introduced to adults, like my parents' friends, I would always have to call them something respectful. But then when I met my friends' parents, like my friends from school, their parents always insisted that I call them by their first names. And as a little kid, this was like hard for me to figure out, right? So I always felt a little bit lost.
Right. Now, what does it mean to you to receive this award?
In a lot of ways, I believe that Chinese Americans in particular and Asian Americans in general, we are in the middle of defining a culture. We haven't really had our own distinctive Chinese American or Asian American music. or even stories, Chinese American or Asian American stories. And right now, in this particular generation, during this particular time, we're defining those things. We are figuring out what it means to be Chinese American. I think it's exciting. I think that getting this award, it helps me to be grateful that I am a part of this ongoing conversation and this ongoing building of Chinese American culture.
During the Chinese Cultural Center Gala, who would you want to thank? Or do you want to say something to your audiences?
Yeah, sure. I mean, first, I do want to thank the Chinese Cultural Center for this tremendous honor. I want to thank God. I want to thank God for all of the trials and the blessings of my life. I want to thank my family, my wife, who supports me in everything I do, even the things that she doesn't totally understand sometimes, and my children for being patient with my career. I want to thank my parents for being constant inspirations for all of my stories. And I want to thank my fellow cartoonists. I never went to art school. I learned to do art. I learned to do comic books and graphic novels by being friends with amazingly talented cartoonists. And I want to thank all of them for all of the inspiration they've given me.
Well, thank you so much. That is very inspiring. And congratulations again, Jane, for getting the Lifetime Achievement in the Community Building Awards. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything.
Congratulations to Gene Luen Yang. I'm so happy that the Chinese Culture Center is honoring this author and artist. He has had a major impact on younger scholars. So I am so happy that he's getting this recognition today because frankly, he's one of our most important Chinese American writers and artists.
The words I have of congratulations for Gene is that you have an unfailing zeal and energy to put your work out there and to actually share it and inspire us.
Grab your smartphone to scan the QR code to bid and support the Chinese Cultural Center's Harmony and Bliss, We the Future, by bidding on these wonderful auction items.
Madeleine Lim is an award-winning filmmaker. She has over 25 years of experience as producer, director, cinematographer, and also editor. Her films have shown at sold-out theaters and features at university and museums, and are broadcast to millions on PBS. She's also the founding executive director of the Queer Women of Color Media Arts Project, which promotes the creation, distribution, and exhibition of new videos and films that increase the visibility of the queer women of color, authentically reflect their life stories, and address the vital social issues that concern their communities. And here we are, Madeleine Lim.
Hi, Maggie.
Congratulations.
So thank you.
Can you tell me about your childhood? What inspired you to be a filmmaker?
Coming out when I was a teenager in Asia, in Singapore, I'm originally from Singapore, was actually really, really challenging. And I did not see myself represented anywhere, in films, in books, and anywhere at all. And I think that for me, film was a really powerful medium. I loved the light and the texture and the way it told stories. It's a really powerful medium because it not only makes people think, it actually makes us feel. So that was what drew me to filmmaking.
So Madeleine, can you tell me about your organization, the Queer Women of Color Media Art Project?
So the origin story is that I had created a film, Samba Belacan, in San Francisco in 1997, and it won a couple of film awards, and it was on the International Film Festival circuit. And at each film festival that I attended, whether it was an arts film festival, LGBTQ film festival, or human rights film festival, I was among one handful of queer women of color filmmakers. And so I thought to myself, if we are not making films about our own lives, who will? Are we just going to sit and wait for Hollywood to get it right one day? When is that going to happen? And so that was the genesis for QuackMap.
Mm-hmm. Now, what is the relationship that you have with the Chinese Cultural Center?
CCC is very close to my heart. They are a really amazing community organization. We partner with them and collaborate with them as much as we can. I feel that, for an organization that is 56 years old this year, I believe, celebrating the 56th anniversary, started in the 60s. I think CCC has done an amazing job staying relevant, changing as the Chinatown community changes, as Chinese experiences in the United States change, and as we grow and evolve, and still being able to serve not only the Chinatown community, but also include, others of us as part of that community. And I think that they have done an amazing job in terms of, the board, the staff, the programming, and just, yeah, I think CCC is awesome.
Madeleine Lim has spent her entire career teaching women of color that their stories are important, that their voices are important.
Her enthusiasm, her dedication, and her wisdom have inspired generations of storytellers and activists.
We are so proud of you, Mad. We love you.
We love you. Say congratulations, Mad.
We realized that Madeleine was a very special person and was going to change our community.
And she has. Congratulations,
Congratulations.
I met Judy 40 years ago when I started research on my film about Angel Island Immigration Station. Her willingness to share her knowledge and resources was immediate. Her generosity is legendary. What I didn't know is that her parents called her Daeung, number 5, as she was the 5th child of 6 born into the family. She developed her love for learning and books early on.
I remember going there for the first time with my grammar school class. That just opened a vista for me to explore the rest of the world from my protected environment in Chinatown. My parents refused to give me permission to get a library card because they were afraid that if I lost any of the books or they would have to pay for them. To get around that, I forged my parents' signature on the library card application. And I continued using that library every weekend and read just about every book I could in the children's room.
I was awestruck by Judy's commitment to Chinese literacy. She even turned down Lowell High for Galileo so she could stay in Chinese school through graduation. And she continued to study Chinese in college. Her ability to speak, read, and write Chinese served her well throughout her career. Judy created the first Chinese-American collection at the Chinatown branch of her youth, as well as establishing the first Asian-American library in the country. At East West, she honed her skills as a journalist, then moved on to author books. Many focused on the contributions of Chinese-American women, like these she told me about in an interview about the YWCA.
There was a very active group of women in the late 1920s who decided that we're going to build this building. And they drove cars.
Judy's enthusiasm for her subjects never waned, but what was surprising and unpredictable is that she ended up marrying one of her interviewees. Retirement from UC Santa Cruz did not slow her down. Even after Eddie's death, Judy continued to mentor, consult, speak, and spent time with family. Her last project was as co-curator of an exhibit on the Chinese in California. I produced the videos for the exhibit, much of it based on research Judy provided. Author Ruth Ann Lemicon said Judy had an incredible impact both during her life and for all time. She was the best friend a person could hope for, and she never quit being a librarian. I think everybody whose life she touched would agree.
感謝大家收睇中華文化中心嘅節目，請大家一齊嚟參加我哋線上嘅晚會。喺5月20號星期四晚上6點半，我哋將會有特別來賓嘅表演，仲有為今次晚會特別製作嘅影片。你可以喺 CCC 嘅網站獲得門票，就係 cccsf.us/harmony-bliss。你仲可以進行虛擬競投。再次祝賀我哋獲獎嘅得主，感謝你哋嘅收睇同參與。
支持舊金山中華文化中心，請於5月20號星期四下午6點半參加我們的線上虛擬晚會，門票現正銷售。
Grab your smartphone to scan the QR code to bid and support the Chinese Cultural Center's Harmony and Bliss, We the Future, by bidding on these wonderful auction items.